All right, so this one's going to be fun. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to take 3 bookshelf speakers that are known for offering really good sound for the money, and then I'm going to compare them to one another. And I'm doing this because I know there's a lot of you out there who are shopping for speakers at this price point, and you just want to know how they compare to each other. That way you can make a decision that best suits your situation and your tastes. And that's going to be the whole goal behind this video today. But before we begin, I need to lay down a few disclaimers, starting with number 1. This video is not going to feature sound clips. Number 2, this video is not a contest. There's not going to be a winner at the end of this all because, quite frankly, each one of these speakers compete very evenly against one another. And then number 3, if you're into technical specifications, I'll have that in the description box below, but I'm not going to go over that in the video. So, having said that, let's begin by taking a closer look at what we're going to be talking about. To the left, we have the Elac debut reference, which retails for $600 a pair. Debut reference, I should say. We have the triangle BRO3s in the middle that retail for $550 a pair. And then to our right, we have the Klipsch RP600M, which retails for $630 a pair. So the big question is, how do they compare to one another? So here's the game plan, guys. First, I'm going to give you a general summary as to what each speaker brings to the table. Then I'm going to talk about equipment matching, positioning within a room, and then I'll talk about things like treble, mid-range, and bass. So first, let's focus on the Klipsch. So if you want a product that can make it sound like there's a live musical event taking place in your room, you want it to sound like the performers are only feet away from your listening position, and you want a big, bold, dynamic sound, and you like to listen at loud volumes, then of the 3, the RP600Ms are going to likely be for you. Now, the compromise to all of this is that the treble is pretty forward sounding, especially when you point the speakers directly at you. Some of you are going to like that, some of you are not. But to those of you who like it, I mean, there is no replacement for what these speakers do for the money. And the cool thing about Klipsch is you can actually dramatically influence the sound of them just by positioning. In other words, if you want that forward rock and roll type sound that's bright with the treble and punchy in the mid-range and bass, then you can get that just by pointing the speakers directly towards you, removing the grills, and bam, there you go. You're going to get that classic Klipsch sound. But if you want something that still has those virtues but is less forward and aggressive, all you have to do is to face them directly out into the room, leave the grills on, and you're going to get that type of sound. So that's pretty cool. Also, I think they're going to be best for somebody who listens to both movies and music equally. Next, let's go over to the Elacs. So of the 3, the Elac is going to be the smoothest, most laid back, warmest, and most balanced sounding speaker. I mean, of the 3, it really does give you the most high-end presentation. And I think it's going to appeal towards 2 types of people. It's number 1, going to appeal to somebody who's almost on the opposite end of the Klipsch spectrum. Somebody who says, hey, look, I just want to listen to my speakers for hours on end. Even if I have poor recordings, I don't want the speaker to butcher the music in that sense. Or it's for somebody who says, hey, when I connect these to high-end gear and I listen to really good recordings, I want a proper audiophile listening experience. If that's you, then again, the Elac debuts are going to have a sound that you will likely enjoy. Now, they don't project like a Klipsch. Instead, they sound more like the presentation is limited to the physical plane of the loudspeakers. Now, the Klipsch can be too much of a good thing. Some people are going to find it too bright and too aggressive sounding. And with the Elac, some people are going to feel like it's maybe just a little bit too boring sounding. Now, that leads me to the triangles, and I saved these for last because really they're like a splice between Elac and Klipsch. It's for somebody who says, hey look, I want a presentation that's easy to listen to like Elac, but I want it to be a little bit more lively, but not as lively and as aggressive as the Klipsch. If that's you, then the triangle BRO3s may be the best match for you because they're going to have a top end that's airy and spacious, but it's not going to be as aggressive as Klipsch, nor is it going to be as laid back as Elac. And really the list goes on, and that leads me actually to a little bit more detail. So first, let's go over the equipment matching and positioning within a room. So of the group, the Klipsch are going to be the easiest to work with in the sense that they sound best, or I wouldn't say sound best, but they sound the best of the 3 when you have to place them near a wall. The other 2 really do need room to breathe. The Klipsch you can get away with putting them a good foot or 2 away from the wall, and you're still going to get good bass output from it. It's not going to sound too bloated or sluggish. But the triangles and the Elacs, on the other hand, they need room to breathe. I would say the Elacs need a good 2 to 3 feet away from a wall boundary to sound their best, and the triangles, 3 feet would be a good place to be. And this leads me to another topic. The Klipsch are rear ported, the triangle and the Elacs have a front port, and a lot of people don't understand that it doesn't matter where your ports are. It really doesn't matter due to how bass loads the room. Instead, it's about the tuning of the speaker. Anyways, that's a different subject for a different video. So when it comes to positioning, that's where we are. If you have to place them next to a wall boundary, the Klipsch is the way to go. Otherwise, if you have some room to breathe, that's where triangle and Elac really come into their own. When it comes to the kind of gear that you should use, I would say that Klipsch responds best to gear that's on the warm side of neutral or something that's just flat out neutral and balanced. Good examples being on the solid state side, Iota VX and their SA3 integrated amplifier is a good match. Denon, Yamaha, especially the Yamaha that's beneath the 1100 series, that's a really good match. Something that's a little higher end that sounds really good would be the Dane's Minuetto integrated amplifier. And as you can imagine, they also sound really good with tubes. I would say 6 watts per channel is fine if you're in a small room and you listen to fairly uncomplex music. Again, these speakers are very easy to drive. But for most people, a good 15 to 30 watts of tube power is going to be sufficient for most listening habits, and on the solid state side, you're going to want to be 30 watts per channel or higher. Obviously, if you're in a bigger room and you listen at louder volumes, you may need to go up to 100 watts or more. Now let's talk about the triangles. Triangles are actually going to be very similar to the Klipsch in the sense that they tend to sound best with neutral to warm sounding gear. Again, the Iota VX SA3 for the money, a fantastic match with the triangles. I may make a video about that, in fact. The Denon is a very solid match, as well as the Yamaha. And overall, I would say that, again, neutral to warm sounding components is what works best with the triangles. Tubes also form a natural match, but with tubes, because they're not quite as efficient as the Klipsch, you're going to want to stick with something that's a good 15 to 30 watts per channel. When it comes to solid state, a good 40, 50 or so or more is going to be good with the triangle. And then we have the Elacs. So the Elacs of the three like power, and they tend to sound best with solid state gear. You can run tubes, but you're going to want a fairly powerful tube amplifier. Say something that outputs 30 watts per channel or more. Otherwise, Class D amplifiers tend to sound really good with the Elacs. Anything that has a cool and or neutral and even or an exciting tone. Good examples being, if you want to liven up the sound, you can get the Marantz PM5005, the NAD316B. That makes for a good match. Or you could just double down on the neutrality and go for something like the Iota VX SA3 on the affordable side, or something like the Dane's Minuetto on the more expensive side at $1,000. Now let's go into the details here. Starting with the treble. So of the three, the Klipsch is going to be the most prominent in that regard. It's going to be the most forward sound. Some people would actually say that the treble's bright. It just depends on your taste and how you have them set up. But yes, the treble presentation is going to be the most forward of the three. And in a way, this is going to give them a sense of more detail, even though I don't think they're inherently more detailed than the triangle or the Elac. Some people are going to walk away with that impression due to how they project sound. The triangle is going to be the airiest. I would say that it's going to have the most natural tone along the top end compared to the other two speakers, at least on most recordings. And again, it's that splice between something that's smooth to listen to, yet has just enough sparkle on top to also be engaging. And then we have the Elac, which is by far going to be the smoothest of the group, the most forgiving, and for somebody who really just listens to music that wasn't really intended to be on an audiophile system. Mid-range. So the mid-range of the Elacs is going to be the warmest of the group, and I would say the most natural when it comes to human speech. It does have that slight BBC-like character to it, and overall it's just a very pleasing sounding mid-range. We have the triangles, and this is where their excitement actually comes in. The mid-range, especially the upper mid-range, is bumped up. They sound the most natural with percussion, with acoustic instruments. This is where they really come into their own. They have a big, quick-sounding mid-range with just a little bit of warmth to it. And then you have the Klipsch, and believe it or not, of the three, the Klipsch may actually have the cleanest sounding mid-range in the sense that there's a slightly warm character to it throughout most of the mid-range, but depending on how you set them up, I think some people may even feel like they're slightly thin at the crossover point, but by and large, I mean, it's going to be the cleanest mid-range of the group. When it comes to bass, the bass on the Klipsch is actually going to be the quickest of the group. It's also going to be the weakest of the group, so that's the trade-off. They wanted something that's quick, that has great power handling, but you're just not going to get as much output from it as far as just this raw, visceral bass that you would expect from a speaker that's this big. The bass on the triangles is surprisingly strong, especially if you're in a small room. But the trade-off to this is that it is the slowest bass among the three. Now, I wouldn't call it sluggish per se, but it's not going to be the quickest bass in the world either. But it is pretty full and it's a lot of fun. And then you have the Elac, which is also going to have pretty good bass output. It has a warm character to it, but overall it's not going to be quite as strong as what you get with the triangle, but it's also going to be ever so slightly, and I'm talking about slightly, cleaner sounding. Imaging. So when it comes to imaging, the triangles are by far the best of the group. They lay down a very wide sound stage, very holographic, a lot of layering to it. I mean, it's more like a proper high-end speaker in that regard. It's very spacious, really good, what do you call it? Pinpoint imaging, I guess you could say. The Elacs are going to have the best focus in between the speakers, and the Klipsch are going to be like the all-arounders. It lays down a decently wide soundstage, it's decently focused, it's nothing bad per se, just nothing amazing. Dynamic output is going to be good on all three speakers, but the Klipsch I think is the best in that regard. It handles crescendos, I think, the cleanest, followed by triangle, and then followed by Elac. Anyways, guys, I could keep going on, but I think by now you have a pretty good idea as to what each speaker brings to the table. So we're just going to do a quick recap and then we're going to end the video. So with the Klipsch, we are going to get the biggest speaker that will give you the most lively, you are there type presentation. It's going to be the most forward, the most dynamic. It's going to have a sound that some people are going to love, but some people are going to feel like it's just too much of a good thing. You have the Elac, which is going to be the most balanced, the most laid back, the smoothest of the group, the most high end, if you will. It's going to be the speaker that you can listen to for hours on end. It's also going to reward you the most when you listen to higher end recordings, but it's so well balanced that some people are going to feel like it's just lacking color and excitement. And then you have the triangles, the mix between the two, something that's pretty easy to listen to on top, but still has that forward and exciting presentation thanks to that prominent mid-range and that strong bass output. So, having said all of that, guys, that's my take on how these three speakers compare to one another. Hopefully you found value in this video. If you have any suggestions on what I should do in the future, by all means let me know. I'm still pretty new to this format. But having said all of that, I think I'm done here, guys. So thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.